And you are, of course, highly regarded as an expert in conservation and adaptive reuse. And you said the word conservation goes way beyond conserving our heritage or colonial buildings. It is actually a sustainable practice. Let's unpack the meaning of those words. What does sustainability then mean?
Well, sustainability, naturally, one of the meanings of sustainability would be to recycle, retrofit, restore, and reuse what exists. In a country like India, we have thousands and thousands of ordinary buildings which need to be recycled. So the most important way to conserve is not to demolish and not to build new, but to restore and repair. So that goes without saying, because then we don't create debris, we don't bring in new material, we see how we can reuse what there is. Particularly in a country like India, apart from ordinary buildings, we have thousands and thousands of monuments listed by the Archaeological Survey of India, being a 2,000, 3,000 or even older civilization. So I believe every architect in this country has to be a conservationist as well. They don't necessarily all need to be specialists and have degrees, because everyone cannot go and get a degree in conservation. But I believe it's inherent in our nature, and we have to put some part of our practice towards conservation.
You were involved with the Indian Institute of Management buildings. I mean, these were buildings designed by Louis Kahn in Ahmedabad. And there was an initial outcry, when it was announced that they would be demolished, and then the decision was reversed and your firm was appointed to conserve and restore. I mean, you even won a UNESCO award, I think one of 4 that your office has won for these projects. Now the project is again slated for demolition. Now, I just want to talk through this idea of conservation. First of all, who decides on what to conserve and why?
They had a director at one time who was very open and who really wanted to take care and restore and repair the building. So they held an international competition, which my studio won. And the competition included the conservation of the 3 buildings around the Louis Kahn Plaza. That's the library building, the faculty block, and the classroom block, as well as 18 dormitories. So we took up the library building, which was a very important building and also not in a very good shape. We worked with structural engineers. We also had peer review from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, where we had very highly trained professionals to assist us, because, there had been an earthquake, and so there was some damage to the building. So it was fully restored, and the inside, what is a library today? It's not the same use as when Kahn perhaps designed it, whatever, 40, 50 years ago. So technology had to be brought in, the way the students use it, the way they sit next to each other, the way they look at the books and the digitization. So the interiors are very contemporary. So it was a wonderful restoration project. And we won, of course, the UNESCO award of distinction. That's one of their highest awards. So we were really very happy and pleased that it had been so successful. Subsequently, they asked us to begin on the faculty building, which we then began on. And for reasons which would be only known to the board of the IIM, they decided to stop the project. Of course, it broke my heart, and we left the project without doing any further work on the faculty building. What they intend to do now, I have no idea about. See, finally, it comes down to what people want, doesn't it? If the people who surround the building or who own the building or who use the building, they are the ones who have to save the building, because otherwise nobody can. That's the case in the IIM. If the board or the people concerned want to save it, then it's up to them. Many of the school buildings, I've restored 4 colonial school buildings in the heart of the fort area of Mumbai with a beautiful church, the St. Thomas Cathedral, which belonged to the school. Now, the board of the school they understood the importance of these buildings. They wanted to modernize education, so we were able to add on new sections to the old heritage buildings. And then they needed money for the church. So they have to the side of the church, there were some small little attached buildings. We made that into the little kindergarten school. So the school uses money from the kindergarten fees to maintain the church. Now, this is the way that people have to work. They have to find money because everything costs money, even restoration work. But there has to be a will. They must want to do it. So it's up to the people around that building to understand why they want to save it and what use it will be. Every building is not the Parthenon or the Acropolis or the Taj Mahal where you can do that, or Humayun's tomb. The rest of India is full of buildings that need to be used. Adaptive reuse or restoration or retrofitting, which is something we have also done.
You pointed out that there is a cost question driving these discussions. Does restoration ultimately cost more per square meter than building anew?
It depends on the condition of the building, and it depends on the materials that that building has been built of, whether it's a stone building or it's a brick building. Now, the stone buildings in colonial Mumbai are in a better condition than the new buildings that were built in the 1970s, when, as you may know, that cement and steel were so adulterated and big issues. But with the IIM, the brick has caused its own issues. So it's very difficult to actually say whether it's more or less expensive.
The question then really is, what's the business case for keeping these buildings, right? Not the heritage stuff, which I think it's hard to argue against, for tearing down the IIM. It's such an important building. But what about the everyday stuff? Is that a harder sell?
You see, as long as the floor space index for a particular piece of land does not exceed the built-up area that that building that's currently standing on it exists, then there is no desire for greed to break it down. But the government has increased the floor space index so high that it's much more lucrative for people to break down what is currently on the land and build a skyscraper.
Right.
So, it's got to work with the government. It's got to work with the bureaucracy. It can't just be the people of the city who may want to keep it.
Right.
So that's what's happening in Mumbai today.